I'm Bernie Gartland. This is the IRS Fix. We belong to the Gartland Group, who help you fix your tax problems.
Bernie. So, Bernie, what's your background? Why should people be listening to you?
They should be listening to me because I know what I'm talking about. That's one of the things I'm doing.
And besides your gray hair and the baldness, I mean, how many years have you been doing this?
You really know how to hurt a guy, don't you?
Well, you know, people got to realize you've been doing what, taxes for 30 years?
Yeah, well, I tell everybody 20 because it makes me look older and like that. Yeah, we've been doing this for over 30 years.
So 30 years of tax information. And Bernie, that's kind of why I think it's so important that you give these presentations to the listeners out there, is that there's so many people just coming into the tax world. Your tax prep people, your CPAs, whatever, with 2-3 years experience, you've forgotten more than they've probably ever learned. And so that's the great thing about what this, whatever this is called, podcast is going to be about. It's about you being able to tap into the prior experience of Bernie Gartland and Bernie's immense staff here who help people with taxes to help you lower your taxes. Is that a good summation?
Well, it's a good summation, and I have to say this, as you're talking, I'm thinking about all the things that we know we can't put together in 4 or 5 minutes. We have to do this on a continuing basis. Now, let me give you a perfect example. Once again, April 15th has come and gone.
Yep.
And once again, people haven't filed their tax returns because they owed money. Okay, we see this all the time. And what happens is the other tax professionals out there, they say, well, we'll file an extension. We'll file an extension. Well, if you file an extension and you owe money, you're going to be hit with up to a 25% non-filing penalty. People don't know that. Now, where am I going with this? The IRS has instituted certain programs that we, the tax professionals, can take charge of and control, and they don't control. We can tell the IRS how we want to fix the problem, and we have up to 72 months to take care of a problem that you should have taken care of when you filed your tax return.
So what I'm hearing from this is that based upon your 30 years of experience, if you can't afford to pay your taxes, file your tax return. It's imperative that you file your tax return. Is that correct?
Absolutely a must.
And I used the fancy word imperative.
Imperative. I like that word.
Don't ask me to spell it. So
it means it behooves you to file your tax return.
Behoove. You must be the next military.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to pay your taxes, file your tax return. If you fail to file your tax return, you're going to be hit with a 5% penalty each and every month, up to 25%. So that means if you owe $10,000 in taxes and you don't file your tax return, you're going to be hit with up to $2,500 in taxes on that aspect alone.
Needlessly.
It is needlessly.
Needlessly. And all you have to do to avoid this penalty is file your tax return.
And let's go a little bit further. What if you're not absolutely positive 100% of the information on there and you're waiting and you know you can't afford to pay the taxes? Could they file a good faith tax return based upon everything they believe it to be, and if it comes out to be incorrect, they can just file an amended later?
Absolutely. And that's what people say, okay, I didn't get my books and records together. Well, you file what we would call a protective tax return, because you're getting the information in and it's no fraud. There's no fraud involved whatsoever. It's just that I didn't get all my information together, but I needed to file my tax return to avoid an unnecessary 25% penalty. Now, you're still going to owe penalties on the payment and the interest on the payment, but also there are programs, like I indicated before, we can control this payment schedule up to 72 months that we can dictate to the IRS the terms of that, and no liens filed. They don't attach your bank accounts, and they don't take your wages. Think about this. Look what you're doing to yourself out there. You are not filing, and we have an expression here, don't we? 1 begets 2, 2 begets 4, 4 begets 10. We interview people that haven't filed anywhere between 3 to 10 years. We interview 5 to 12 people a week, okay? And I sit there and I say, why didn't you file? I didn't have the money. Well, who told you that you should not file? I said, well, my tax professional said that, if you don't have the money, maybe it's better to get an extension. And they sit there and say, there's that 25% penalty.
Yep.
Because what happens is you all get really complacent when all of a sudden the IRS doesn't show up at your door in June or September. You say, wow, I've made it. And then April comes along. And now you're watching all the commercials that we put on about tax preparation and say, oh my goodness, I didn't file last year. Oh, I'm going to owe again this year. So you don't file that year. Now it's 50% in it.
Yeah, and let's go into the other area too. Other area of if you don't file your tax return, and this is projecting forward, a lot of people come to us whenever they have big tax issues. And one of the easiest ways to get rid of your taxes, your tax issues, is bankruptcy. But here's the challenge. If you don't file your tax returns, you can't wipe out those taxes in bankruptcy. Whereas if we put it the other way, if you do file your tax returns, very good chance we can wipe out those taxes in bankruptcy. Even if you owe $83 million, we should be able to wipe that out in bankruptcy so long as you filed your taxes. So here's the big takeaway from today's inaugural broadcast. It's right after April 15th. Some of you might have froze. Okay, bad news, you got hit with that 5% penalty. File your tax return. Even if you can't afford to pay the taxes, file your tax return.
Now here's the problem. You folks are listening out there, and you just heard Tim, who's a tax attorney, obviously, say that you can file bankruptcy on taxes. And all of you sitting there going, I've always been told that you can't do that. Well, the interesting thing is you've been told by people who do not know. If you go to bankruptcy code, and I'm not going to give the code numbers, if you go to bankruptcy code, you could always file tax bankruptcy for years and years and years. The question is, how come nobody knew? Well, because they don't do tax work like we do, and they don't do bankruptcy work like we do. Taxes are dischargeable in bankruptcy when they meet 3 qualified rules we can go into on another day. But rest assured that one of the remedies, one of the options you have is a dischargeability of your personal taxes in bankruptcy.
Well, Bernie, I think that's good enough information for our first episode. Anything you want to say to the viewers out there?
Keep listening, because you're going to get a lot of information from Tim and me that you never heard of before, but it's accurate. And that's the thing. We are here to help you solve your multiple tax problems. And each week we're going to go into a new area and a new segment.
That's a wrap.